Hello my friends, I'm Rich Larson and I'm the IRC Tire Guide. Today we are live here at the Tennessee Knockout, the final round of the US Hard Enduro Premier Championship. We're very excited, and since this is the final round, we thought let's showcase some new tires. We've got a bunch of new additions coming to the IRC Tire line, new sizes in the JX8, the VE33S, as well as an all-new 140 gummy tire that we're very excited to show off. But before we start showing that stuff off, that's going to be in a later episode, we want to start out with something fun. The Pro versus Joe stuff that you guys have really enjoyed. We've got a perfect hill back here. We're going to jump up there and watch some of the amateur riders attack this section. And then I'm going to show you the top riders in the world and show you guys the difference between the amateurs, the pros. I know you guys love that stuff. We're going to break it down in depth live. It's going to be a blast. I can't wait. And let's get right into it with the Pro versus Joe here at the Tennessee Knockout. All right guys, we just watched about 50 amateurs come through this uphill swamp, I believe is what this section's called. Now, we see some of the same tendencies from the amateur riders. The first thing I want to talk about is the physical fitness. That's a key piece to hard enduro, obviously. It's commendable the amount of work and the amount of ability that these guys have when they're coming into these gnarly sections, especially because they don't ride every single day, right? So you're gonna see the pros come through, they're gonna feel super fresh coming into this section where these guys are a little bit tired. That physical demand that's needed coming into these sections ends up playing a big role in everything surrounding body position, balance, throttle control, everything, right? So with the amateurs, you're seeing guys dropping to the seat, right? Right off the bat, they kind of come through this off-camber corner and they drop to the seat and they've kind of got to paddle the rest of the way through. Now, obviously, I preach this all the time. If you can keep 1 foot on the peg at least, and only dab for a correction in balance, nothing more, you're maximizing the traction to the rear tire, especially on something that's about this steep. There are certain things where you're gonna drop to the seat and you're gonna maximize that weight on the rear tire through the seat. But in this situation, you could see even some of the top amateur guys coming through, maximizing through their pegs, staying above the seat and dabbing on the high side. So there's a couple things to be said about the dab. One thing I noticed is, again, most of the time when you drop to the seat, you put your feet down, you're pressing through the ground, not through the peg, not through the actual machine itself. Even if you drop to the seat, you should try to avoid at all costs pressing through the ground. You press through the ground, that de-weights the rear tire, makes that tire spin. Now, the other thing I say is you kind of have to learn how to dance on the pegs. Dabbing on the right, dabbing on the left. As they enter, most of the guys are staying to the left of the course, and there's a high side on the hill. So they're pressing through their right peg, staying above the seat, and dabbing on the left when they need it. Those are what some of the amateurs were doing. The majority of them were dropping to the seat and trying to paddle. Now, a couple other things I noticed, and again, this kind of goes back to that balance side. The more balanced you are on the machine, the less you have to dab and the more pressure you can keep on that rear tire, keeping that tractable movement forward. But one key piece that you guys are going to notice big time in the difference in sound between the amateurs and the top riders. The amateurs are coming through pretty heavy on the power. Now, of course, depending on the situation with the pros, I think you're going to hear a lot lower RPM. These guys are the best at maximizing momentum and maintaining momentum. So the way I always kind of explain this is look for maximum power delivery, then the transition to minimum power delivery to maintain tractable control. You need to make that transition from maximum to minimum as quickly as possible. A lot of these guys are just hanging on the throttle and hoping they make it through. If you can hang on the throttle in the beginning, find your momentum, then maintain momentum with the transition to minimum throttle, you're gonna be a lot more successful in keeping that traction. That's gonna be a key piece. You guys are gonna hear the difference when the pros come through this section on how low their RPMs are and how efficient they are on maintaining momentum. So once again, your ability to stay above the machine is so key. And that's why I'm so against seeing riders kind of drop to the seat and try to paddle. I understand you're gonna see some of the top riders doing that, but there's a major difference between the way the top guys do it and the amateur guys do it. So First off, when you drop to your seat, you're weighting the ground, not the rear tire. But the big piece of this is the ability to stay in front of the force on the machine. And this is where the amateurs make the kind of loop out mistake. Now, we saw a couple guys just about loop their bike out at the top. The reason that is when you have both feet off the pegs, you have no ability to move in front of the force. If your both feet are dragging on the side of the ground, as soon as that rear tire starts to hook, the front tire comes into the air. So you either chop the throttle and stop where you are because the uphill is slowing your momentum. So you have to chop the throttle, stop where you are, or stay on the throttle and bail off the back and throw your bike. We got video of a few guys doing that. And the reason that always happens is both feet are off the pegs. Now, the top riders are able to feel that place where the rear tire starts to track. Their front tire is starting to come into the air. Even if both feet are off the pegs, they'll step to one foot on the pegs, step above the machine to counteract that acceleration force, that wheelie force, and counteract the machine from wheeling over. So the key points here are, of course, physical fitness is key. Now, some of these guys aren't gonna be able to ride every day like the top guys, of course. That being said, if you don't have the ability to get that physical fitness up to stuff, work your balance. Understand that we're trying to always maximize the pressure on the rear tire. And you're gonna see a big piece of that in the top riders as they attack this session. They're gonna keep their feet on the pegs and keep that bike moving. One big piece is that low RPM. Learning how to deliver maximum power when you can and when you need it, and then transitioning to minimum power after you establish that momentum. That transition from maximum to minimum is so key. The other piece of this is staying in front of the force of the machine. So if you're dropping to the seat and paddling, not only are you probably gonna expend more energy taking that weight off of the rear tire, you're behind in your movements. You don't have an ability to get in front of the force of the machine, and that peg is a key piece for you to step up above the bike. We're gonna see a huge difference in the pro riders, of course, because that's what they get paid to do. It's gonna be interesting to see the nuance here, and I can't wait for you guys to see it. Let's get filming, and let's break it down. All right, guys, we just saw the top riders coming through, and the difference is incredible. This is actually day 2, so we filmed the amateur stuff yesterday, and yeah, man, I mean, we saw exactly what we were talking about during the amateurs, trying to stay above the bike. That's the key thing that we're seeing. As these guys come through, they have obviously a lot more momentum. They're taking that corner much faster. They're focused heavy on the outside peg weight and dabbing on the high side of the hill the whole entire time. Most of the guys have that high level of balance where they really don't even take their feet off, but when they do, it's only a dab for a correction in balance. Now, the other thing we hear is full momentum coming through the bottom and an almost lug the rest of the way through. They keep the power as low as they can for as long as they can until they absolutely need that delivery. A really interesting body position that we saw, and we see some variations from rider to rider. Mario Roman, Tito Kovachev, we see them with a little more of a knees forward position, floating above the seat, super clean, super solid through. Wade Young, I noticed as he kind of doubled up this rock, we saw a more straight knee position, a head forward leading position, which is kind of that thing we've gone into when we're approaching a log double or any real smaller obstacle, which Wade was kind of using a rock to double up. We see the heels drop, the knees come back, the head come forward. Super interesting. Although there is variation in each top rider, we see the same fundamental control from all of them. The understanding that if you can keep your feet on the pegs, stay above the machine, you have a higher ability to move in counteraction on the bike and a higher ability to keep the power on the low end of the RPM. Again, watching the differences between the amateurs and the pros is incredible. Of course, these amateurs, they don't get a ride every single day, but the understandings of trying to keep your feet on the pegs so you can stay above the machine is so important. Of course, the fundamental control of balance, power delivery and collection, and body position are keys to maximize that ability to stay on the pegs. But if you can keep that in your head, dabbing for only correction and balance, trying to maintain at least 1 foot on the pegs at all times, that allows you to move in front of the acceleration and deceleration forces. And that ability to stay in front of the outside forces is the key piece that the top riders can do. It's so much fun to watch these guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode and watching the differences between the amateurs and the pros. And a shout out to all the amateurs out here at the TKO Enduro, working hard, having fun. I love this stuff. So we've got a couple more TKO videos coming out in the later weeks. We've got the tire release. We're talking about the new tires. I'm excited for you guys to see that. And I hope you're enjoying the channel. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as follow us on Instagram at IRC Moto, my personal Instagram page at RichLarson511. And until next time, keep shredding.